Well, hello, everybody. My name is Chris Fabian. I know most everybody on the line. I'm joined today with Jackie English, who has led our product rebuild over the last year. This is super exciting for us. This is the second time we've done this type of presentation. Our first was just during the rollout during the annual priority-based budgeting user event, which was just a few weeks ago. Last week, we were at the ICMA conference in Portland and had 3 sessions on what it means to be budgeting in the 21st century. And we incorporated, obviously, priority-based budgeting into our presentation and had a chance to showcase the new tools as well on how to both build your programmatic data, implement priority-based budgeting, and probably most excitingly, build a budget, go through the budget development process. I'm just going to do a quick introduction and then turn it over to Jackie, and then I'll bookend the presentation with a little bit on where we head next. Just so everybody knows, today we're going to do a full demonstration of the platform all the way up to the budget development process. And then the budget development full demonstration will be in 2 weeks. I'll remind everybody at the end of the session when that is. And Liz, if you wouldn't mind just dropping a link where you can register for that event. It's also free. And if you can't make that event or 2 weeks is too long, if you're on the edge of your seat, please just follow up with us and we can do a budgeter demonstration before 2 weeks from now. And that would be totally fine. The main thing I wanted to get to before I turn it over to Jackie, there are 2 really cool things that have been taking place. If you hadn't noticed, GFOA earlier this year has updated their Distinguished Budget Award evaluation criteria. And for the first time, it is incorporated into that criteria that budgets will be evaluated based on how communities are reporting and communicating at the program level, their budgets, how they're building their budgets at the program level, and also how resources are aligned with results, which, as you know, is the very heart of priority-based budgeting. So we're so happy to see GFOA going in that direction. For those of you who go for that particular distinction and award, we've obviously been partnered with GFOA closely for a decade now, and it takes a while for that kind of change to take place. And so we couldn't be more thrilled about that. And then simultaneously, we have been working with ICMA and Brian Bullock in particular, who is weaving priority-based budgeting into their credentialed manager program. So Wayne, I'm super happy that you're on the line because that is part of the work that you have influenced for a long time together with us as well. So to see both ICMA and GFOA pushing in this direction to bring to light the importance of program-centric decision-making and program-centric budgeting, as well as priority-based budgeting, it's a long time coming, but the industry is moving. And our role, and what Jackie's going to get into next, was to make sure that this becomes easier and easier for organizations to do. And that was the impetus for us to tackle a complete rebuild of the priority-based budgeting online platform, which we started just over a year ago. And also the invention of an actual budget development process. So on both of those notes, our job is to help make sure that we're making it easier for you to do all of these things. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jackie.
Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate that introduction. As Chris mentioned, basically my job as the Resource X product manager is to make it easier and easier for anyone on the call, existing or prospective communities that we work with or hope to work with, to use our software again and again and get valuable information into and out of it. So I have the pleasure of giving some demonstration about what that looks like overall. For us, really, we kind of break it out into our process, and our software breaks it out into a series of 4 different components, if you will. The first is to create data. The second is to generate insights. And then with that data and those insights, we encourage and support every community to take action on the various types of programmatic opportunities that are presented to them by way of our software. Essentially, this breaks out into what we call the promise of the process. We believe that when people create programmatic data, they do so to be able to get actionable insights to deal with their changing community needs and their limited resources, and that programs are the way to handle those kind of paradigms or dichotomies that we're facing. There are changing and potentially new needs in your community, and you have limited resources, and program data is the way to bridge both of those dichotomies or paradigms to leverage everything that you need to leverage in order to address those new needs. And our software, as I'll attempt to get to here shortly, is meant to make that easier and easier, especially with our new unveiling or new build. Although I do recognize, before I jump straight into talking about the software, that we do have some folks who maybe haven't interacted with ResourceX in the PUB community in a little while, or we have some who are maybe just beginning to learn about it. So before jumping straight into our software demo, along the way, I'll pause a little bit to just take one step at a higher level and talk a little bit about what we mean when we say creating data or generating insights or taking action on that. So the first thing that we like to talk about, it's foundational to what we do here at ResourceX in our software, is create programs. Programs are our most important data layer. It's the data layer upon which everything else is built. So when ResourceX says program inventory or creating programs or leveraging your program data, what we mean is having a list of services that meet the following definition for our standards: a group of people working together to deliver a discrete service to identifiable users. Essentially, your program inventory, as we call it, is a list of different stories for your departments or your organization as a whole to be able to tell. So it's talking about what you do and identifying, again, what you do, who gets served by that program overall. And in doing so, there are tons of benefits. You have a lot more transparency about what you do and what it costs when you add on that additional data layer. You can begin to have more contextualized and kind of humanized trade-off discussions because you're talking at a program level and an understandable level instead of just line items for choosing to budget. You know, I don't know if you're having a discussion from a budgeting perspective and you're talking about office supplies versus I don't know, small equipment supplies. It's really hard to understand what that trade-off means. What's the difference between small equipment and office supplies, for starters? It's a question I had when I started working with ResourceX and seeing a lot of different community budgets. But all of that gets revolutionized and reframed from the discussion when you're looking at it from the program perspective. Programs also again, provide comparisons a little bit more easily because they humanize what's going on and kind of make it more understandable, and can even perhaps help you plan for changes in the workforces once you begin to understand where your people are spending their time at a service level. So that was kind of a brief overview because I want to make sure that we maximize our time in the tools here, but generally want to point out, just for those on the call who are wondering when we talk about programs, this is what we mean. But without further ado, I do want to spend some time in the tools. So first off, we're going to just talk about what program inventory means and what we've done in order to make it easier and easier to use in the software. The ones that we're going to hit on specifically are building your inventory, editing your inventory, and adding from search. As Chris mentioned, there will be opportunity for follow-up. If anyone's really curious to know what combined programs looks like, I'm more than happy to show you. Just want to make sure we're maximizing everyone's time here. So hopefully, quick nod from the group here, you're seeing a different screen of our software. That's excellent. And like I said, what we're going to do is I'm going to show everyone what it looks like to build an inventory. And this is more perhaps for those who don't have a program inventory, who maybe haven't worked with us before, though you will always be able to build a new inventory if you haven't worked with us before and access this feature, should you be interested. So I've decided for the sake of this demo that I would like to build my inventory for an information technology or an IT department. And so this is what I'm going to do. Essentially, I am going through and outlining here, if I can spell, what my department and division is called for the inventory that I would like to build. So again, I'm thinking about, all right, I'm going to build an inventory that fits the definition of a series of programs that are a group of people working together to deliver a discrete service to identifiable users. And some of you may be asking the question, where is she building this from? You know, I get it, we're in an IT department, but where is this coming from? ResourceX has what we call a department starter inventory. So we have a series of, I believe, more than 60 departments broken out. And within this, we have more than 650 programs that we have seen as commonly used programs for each of the departments that we see broken out into our inventory. And so what this is just essentially pulling some commonly used programs that we see from the over 300 communities that we've worked with to make it as easy as possible for anyone to generate their program inventory using essentially the wisdom of the crowd. All our communities have generated some great inventories, and why not share that with you guys essentially? And we've distilled it into a way that is really easy to use here. So you can, you know, get even more refined. Maybe we're working in an IT department, but really we're only looking for software and services and infrastructure programs. This is getting smaller, or we can just say, you know what, I want to see everything that ResourceX has about IT. I can go ahead and hit next here, and I'm seeing all of the programs associated with IT, and I can see this is quite a bit. We're talking about things like mobile network support, audiovisual support, phone system support, all kinds of things, security, desktop and mobile kind of resource support. Maybe you all have a help desk. So what you can do here, what we're prompting users to do is be able to say, hey, which of these are actually relevant to you? We get it. We at ResourceX gave you a starting point, but sometimes this doesn't fit everything that you do. Maybe you have outsourced your wide and local area network, and so that's not something you do, and that's not relevant to your inventory. So you don't want to add it even from the beginning, and that's totally okay. So what you can do is just kind of indicate which programs from our starter inventory you want to have immediately as a starting place for your inventory overall. I'm going to go ahead and hit keep here, and then our opportunity, as indicated here, is to add additional programs. And so maybe I can think about an additional IT program that we offer uniquely at the City of ResourceX. Unique Zoom support for ResourceX webinars or something like that. Maybe we offer unique Zoom support or something like that. So I can hit finish here, and this will prompt me to go to my program inventory. Essentially what I'm trying to point out here and what our software has done for the first time is make it as easy as possible to access the ResourceX starter inventory and edit the ResourceX starter inventory to become immediately organizationally meaningful to you. You can immediately and easily weed out the programs that don't mean anything to you or don't make sense to you. You can edit them quickly and you can add to them quickly. And it's the first thing you ever see. So you're able to immediately just see programs that are most relevant to you. And that's what we wanted to point out here. So I'll zoom in just to show the ones that we were looking for here in IT really quickly. And then I can show you guys what edit looks like. And I'm actually going to use a different department in order to do that. So we can look at I'm going to look at the financial services, just because I know many of the people on the call here are from finance departments or budget departments. So sometimes talking about that at a program perspective is fun for folks. And I've done a little bit of prep work here. Perhaps, as you may notice, some of these are a little bit strangely named when we're looking at something like example finance program or another example finance program. That maybe doesn't fit the definition of what ResourceX calls a program. So I might want to edit this example finance program to say it is, actually I'm gonna edit this another example finance program, and I'm gonna call it public input for budget. I'm going to call it that because I've already prepped my description to be something related to public input and budget. So I'm going to edit this to just say generate public input during 3 months of budget deliberation to ensure public agrees with tax I'm going to say spending allocations or something like that. Essentially, the spirit of this program is saying there might be some people here in the budget department or otherwise that spend some time getting additional public input outside of just, regular council hearings and things like that. Maybe someone in your office goes out and really tries to generate as much public input as possible on that, on this particular topic of budget management. And so you spend some time getting as much citizen feedback about that as possible. And why do we want that kind of explicitly called out here in the program inventory? Again, because when you think back all the way to that first slide I had about talking about what a program is, it's something that you can tell a story around. So you can begin to think about, okay, we spend time doing this. I can allocate my time to this program. I can say, this is how much it costs, and here's what we do. Here are the benefits of spending time getting public input on our budget. And you can begin to tell that story over and over again. And hopefully, as you think about what that story might look like for you, you're also recognizing how very easy it was for me to edit that name and description, which was what I was slyly trying to show to you as well by way of our edit program inventory over here. After we have built our inventory, we can quickly and easily see which programs we have over here and edit them with the ease and familiarity of Excel. Essentially, you can just click into the cell, type in it, hit save, and your program inventory is that easy to edit. So overall, again, kind of going all the way back to what Chris had mentioned with what we try to do with our next generation of our online PVP software is make it so much easier for people to interact with. And this is just one way. We know that program inventory is leveraged again and again for you to tell stories. And we want it to be something that you can easily edit so you can tell those stories as accurately and quickly as possible. With that said, I also kind of teased the fact that we have a different way to add to your program inventory in addition to our inventory builder. We usually recommend our inventory builder for newer clients, for people who are starting their inventory process for the first time. For those who maybe already have an inventory but want to do some tweaks to it, we also have this feature called Add a Program from Search. And this is really great. Whereas the inventory builder was referencing all of the programs from the ResourceX starter inventory, the Add from Search is referencing all of the programs from every community we've worked with before. So this is, if you're going to say that the inventory builder is leveraging the wisdom of the crowd and it's leveraging all of the knowledge that ResourceX has built over the last 5 or 6 years in the over 300 communities that we've worked with, this Add from Search is really leveraging the wisdom of crowds and allowing you to get very granular information and feedback from others who have created their program inventory. So as an example, I might work at a really high level and just want to see all of the programs generated throughout the community for social services. And you're able to see here really, really quickly all of the different programs we have associated. And this, in case anyone was curious, this output does include the ResourceX starter inventory. So you do still see that standard group of programs that we have in our inventory. And then as we go down the list, you can begin to see some specific programs from certain communities that we worked with, such as Gaston County and others. That was the first geography that I could see, but there are many out there. We've worked with many, many communities, cities and counties. And so you can kind of see all of the different programs that they've come up with and begin to leverage those. And it's incredibly easy to be able to add those programs to your inventory as well. So perhaps I want to add something like foster care training and child advocacy centers and low-income energy assistance to my inventory. Notice it's incredibly easy to just say, these are what I want to add to my inventory based off of the wisdom of the crowd. And before I do that, you might also say, wait, Jackie, all I know is the program name. What if I want to know more about that? Great point. What we can do is get the description. Perhaps this was a bad example for me because they didn't put a description, but overall, it's really easy for you to just be able to find a program with a description here and be able to click on it and review it as well. So maybe we also want to add homeless coordination, but I want to know a little bit more about what that looks like. The description here is to provide housing support, collaborate with community partners to evaluate the needs, and develop housing resources. If I say that sounds great, I'm also going to add that one. And it's just have a running list here for someone to really easily build out their social services inventory. I'm going to go ahead and hit next here. And this is the same kind of familiarity with Excel. Essentially, you are able to come in here and say low income energy assistance description. You can easily edit the descriptions to be something that's meaningful to your organization. Fully recognize that this is starting from someone else's inventory and then going into yours. So the need to edit is very obvious here. That's why you're prompted exactly to do so. So you can learn from the crowd, learn from what someone in some other county or city has done, pull that into your inventory as a great starting place, and then edit really easily in order to get what you need. I can hit finish here, and I can again go to my program inventory to see that. I also do want to make sure that we're spending time seeing the entire tool. So of course, program inventory is really important. That's why I spend a little bit more time here, just because like we said, that's the first and foundational data layer. But I'm also going to pivot now to talking quickly about what it looks like to allocate costs in our tools. So over here, back to the slides really quickly, just to familiarize those on the call who may be unsure what costing means for us. Hopefully you're seeing the new screen again. We're coming all the way back to thinking about what creating data means, but we're going to talk about it from a new perspective or with a new data layer, and that being your program costs here. So your program costs, think about them. Now we've talked a little about what a program inventory is and what your programs are. And you already have your costs by way of your line item data. Essentially what we do when we're thinking about program cost allocation is we take your line item data and we allocate it to those programs that we've created. And this in the tool has been entirely revamped, maybe not entirely revamped. Visually, we've tried to make it as easy as possible in order to do so. So I will show you what that looks like. For those on the call, it'll be familiar to those who have already allocated their programs, and to those who haven't, it's meant to be as intuitive as ever. So I think examples are the best way to learn in some instances, and I think this is no exception. So from the perspective of our cost allocation, again, for those on the call, it is the same kind of user interface of what we call our drill chart or our stack bar here, which makes it really, really easy to interact with. So again, because I'm working with some financial services folks, by and large, those are who are on the call, I'm actually going to zoom in on budget management. And hopefully what I'm showing you all here is some advanced functionality that we've built out, where you can not only drill in by what we call user group or cost center, essentially just a group of costs in programs that match up together, but you can actually do so even one level further at the department level should you choose to. And so you can get really, really clear on the types of the data that you're looking at. You can only look at the data that's most relevant or intriguing to you at the moment. So we have some built out features as it relates to filters. And the other thing that I'm going to point out for some folks is that you can slice and dice this data in a variety of different ways. So you'll notice we have this thing called personnel and non-personnel at the very top. And then we can drill in, we're on financial services, that's the filter I set. And then we're on budget management, also the filters I set. And then I can go in and I might say, I, Jackie English, am not the best finance person and I don't have this number memorized. So maybe I want to say, okay, I don't know what that means. I want to look at it from a different perspective. I want to look at it from a position number perspective, or a position and then position number. And then maybe, just maybe, I might remember what that number means at the bottom. And so I can keep it down there. And what you'll notice as soon as I click out of this is that we had a little bit of a reshuffling in our bar chart here. And we were able to instead not see what that number means, but something maybe a little bit more meaningful to people, we can look at our budget and operations analyst and our budget manager. Those do make sense to me. So that's what that restacking ability allows you to do. Everyone in the organization can stack and restack to look at the perspective that's most meaningful to them. And then from a personnel perspective, we can really quickly just allocate their time, which is what we instruct people to do when they work with ResourceX. And so my budget and operations analyst might evenly work on all of these programs selected here. They might work on priority-based budgeting management, budget development. They maybe don't work on this example finance program, but they do work on capital budget development. And maybe they don't work on this public budget, public input for budget, which is what we generated earlier. So I can say, maybe they work on this one, I don't know, 20%, and then they work on this one with 40% of their time, and then they work on this one 30% of their time, just painting with really broad strokes here. And then I can hit update, and we can see that that person has gone to 90% because I actually don't do math that well. And so I need to adjust this one to be 30%, and then they can be at 100%. And there we go. That's a full cost allocation, and it's as easy as that from a personnel perspective. From a non-personnel perspective, we do also have some easy buttons here. So maybe for copier, printer, and lease as one of our line items in our budget management. Again, I'm just going to filter on budget management on those programs. And it's incredibly easy. Watch how easy this is. I'm just going to evenly spread this cost across all of these programs because all of these programs equally use paper or copier or supplies, and we are all good there. So overall, that's costing quick and easy. And I'm now going to move back to my slides really quickly to talk a little bit about program scoring. And then we're going to get into some fun to talk about insights as well. So program scoring from the perspective of our new tool is, again, just another data layer. It's all located in our data tab. And we have two different perspectives to look at for program scoring. The first is what we call basic program attributes. These basic program attributes are somewhat standard to ResourceX, and we have 5 of them, but they're always available for customization, and you can always add more. These are essentially characteristics of each program, great questions to ask essentially. And so we have everyone assess all of their programs, both their community and governance programs, against our basic program attributes. And there's a customizable scale for you to be able to do so. So what that means a little bit more in detail is essentially, we'll take an example, like I said, because I love those. We have 5 basic program attributes: mandate, demand, population served, reliance, and cost recovery. Again, just attributes or characteristics of the program. And you might want to know, let's take cost recovery. Some communities might want the scale of cost recovery. Does it recover 1 cent? Okay, that's cost recovery. Does it recover 0 cent? That's no cost recovery. Some communities might want to break that up a little bit more to say, all right, if it recovers at least 1 cent, that's like barely cost recovery, some cost recovery of the program. Whereas some programs out there might recover more than 50% of its cost. And so we want to know something like that. Is it anywhere between 0 and less than 50, 50 to 75, or 75 and above? And then that would be kind of a 3-point scale, whereas it's just another example might be a 2-point scale, so on and so forth. So we have that customizability to get out of these basic program attributes the levels of data that you're most interested in. And that flexibility and that customizability is really easy in our new tool. In addition to our basic program attributes, as many of you may be familiar, there are opportunities to assess your programs against your community results or the priorities of your community. These may be things that are in your strategic plan or something generated by council or your board or your whatever you call your elected body. These are things that are really the answer to the question, why are we in business? What is your government there to provide? And when you score your programs against your community priorities or results, this is the opportunity to assess the alignment of your programs to the priorities of your community. And then remember, when we loop in that program cost that we just briefly highlighted, that's really how you put a bow on this whole thing and generate a truly prioritized budget. You have what you do, you have the resources allocated to what you do, and you have how what you do aligns with what you want to prioritize or provide overall. That's kind of the cherry on top, or like I said, the piece that ties it all together. So from a conceptual perspective, essentially anything related to scoring is really just thinking about, okay, here's my program, how does it align or match up with this result or this basic program attribute that I'm thinking about. And with that, I'll spend a little bit of time thinking about what that, or showing you all rather, what that looks like in our software again. Just going back and forth on my screen share here and hoping it's working out for you all and you're not experiencing too much whiplash, but instead a ton of excitement. And want to show here what it looks like very quickly to assess a program or two against some basic program attributes. So again, as I mentioned, we have 5 standard basic program attributes. There's always room for any organization to customize within those 5 standard attributes or to add more. Again, these are just questions that you would like to know the answer to for every program. So I love the example of using emergency services and then talking about the degree to which it's mandated. I think it's a lot of fun here to be able to think about what that looks like overall. I'm going to give a quick refresh here and then be able to go to mandate here and talk about emergency services, or let's look at the fire department. And maybe, just maybe, here we go. We're going to go back to finance because I think that I've prepped this for the wrong organization. So forgive me there, but overall, I love talking about finance mandates too. It's kind of interesting to be able to think from our own perspective, hey, what do we do that is mandated and what do we do that maybe isn't mandated? Again, just kind of thinking, okay, this is for the best because I think you guys are more familiar with these programs anyway. You might be able to help me where I may go astray as far as kind of pretending to assess these mandates here. Maybe for unclaimed property filings, I'm going to guess that's an internal mandate, or maybe it's a higher level mandate if you're a county, bet the state makes you do that. Perhaps not, so definitely let me know in the chat if I'm misaligned here. For something like performance management, if that's something that your finance department does or your financial services provide, that's probably not mandated. It's probably more of a best practice. And then maybe for rating agencies and investor relations, that's definitely having a higher mandate here. For priority-based budgeting, I think that's got to be an internal mandate. I'm just kidding. That might not be, mandated, but this is where it kind of gets interesting, and this is why these discussions become so fun when we're assessing our programs. Budget development probably is internally mandated, or one could even say higher level mandate, because almost everyone we work with is required by the state to have a balanced budget. So you could, definitely argue a higher level mandate there. And I'm doing this really quickly to highlight a couple of things. One, we've redone our interface for scoring, and I want to point out how truly quick and easy it is to assess these programs. And two, because I want to make sure we have time to see everything in the software, and there's so much that we did, I'm kind of just quickly breezing through and hopefully whetting your appetite for all of it. But as we were going through this process, if we were doing it truly for your organization and there was training involved, we would of course encourage people to leave comments about what they're thinking in terms of mandate. Maybe PBB isn't mandated, but budget development is, because we're mandated by state to have a balanced budget. We would want all of that to be captured in the comments, and then be able to read those comments as we're distilling all of this information and reacting accordingly. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is hit save here. And I know it wasn't the most glamorous or obvious thing ever, because we have a ton of programs in our financial services, but this did change from 25 to 31% based off of some of those quick guesstimates on mandate that I did. And so this along the way is giving you really simple and easy feedback to be able to say, okay, I still got a couple more to go, but that was really easy. I made some great progress in a short amount of time. So that's really what we wanted to point out there as it relates to program scoring, is just how quickly and easily it can be done with this new interface. Allows department users especially to be able to do is breeze through this, really feel like they're just taking a quick survey about their programs and they can move on to the next one. Maybe we want to talk about population served next. I could go through and do the same thing. Think about, okay, how many people are served by priority-based budgeting management? Greater than 50% of the population. We are helping everyone get better by way of doing PBB. Same thing maybe for budget development, but maybe for internal policy control, only 1 to 25% of the population is benefiting, and so on and so forth. For payroll, definitely everyone in our organization is benefiting, so greater than 50%. And we can just keep going all day because it's so easy to use. That is the point of our rebuilt department scoring platform here. And with a little bit of remaining time, I want to spend some time talking about our insights. I also want to recognize really quickly that there was a chat here and say, Jim, I have read your chat and I will respond to it at the end when we have some Q&A time, if that's okay with you. Definitely not going to forget, I promise, and we'll have room for more Q&A here in 10 minutes or so. And quickly just mention to the audience, thanks, Jim, for putting in your question there. If anyone else has questions that they're holding on to, feel free to pepper them in the chat so you don't forget them, and we have some time dedicated to get there. So one more time, back to my slides here, just to make sure I'm giving the best possible preview of the full ResourceX software and mentality or methodology. Our concepts are important, as is the software. I want to make sure I'm giving some good time to both here. And for those on the call who maybe haven't worked with us quite yet, I hope this is helpful for you all to just get really quick introduction to what we're talking about and then immediately introduced to how our software makes that easy for you. So the last piece that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about before, again, getting that Q&A and turning it back over to Chris, is being able to generate insights. So you generate all this data, you get a program inventory, you do your cost allocation, you assess your programs against those basic program attributes and the priorities of your community. You have all this data, it's awesome. Still begs the question, what do I do with it? That's where insights come in. And so we here at ResourceX believe that with this program data, it's meant to be leveraged, it's meant to be taken, it's meant to be acted upon. And we believe that program insights are the bridge between data and action. What we mean when we say program insights are, essentially challenging your users, anyone in your organization, to be able to designate the desired future for every program that they've created in their inventory. So when we say that insights are the kind of bridge between data and action, we say this because it really is, we believe, an opportunity to carve out time and space to dedicate and intentionally say out loud what people want the future of their program to be. And, with some of the communities or many of the communities we worked with, even just carving out that time and space has really revolutionized the way they're working in their organization, the way they're thinking about their program data, because they're kind of active users and saying, okay, with this, we're going to do this. With this program, we're going to do this. And here's why I can justify it with my data. And what's super awesome about the way that we structure our insight workshops and the way that we've built our software, our new generation here that we're kind of showing you all, is that program insights can now use the wisdom of crowds in order to super maximize that opportunity for actionable insight and action being taken on the program data. Because we've found that when not only are you departments, clearly indicating their intention or future for every program, but they're getting validated by every other department, or maybe not every other, but at least some other departments. And that's really honing up the insight itself to be much stronger and more actionable. Also just generating a ton of excitement across the organization. There's some subtle accountability there when someone from finance, or I've been using finance the whole time, so maybe someone from parks had an insight workshop with someone from finance, and that person in parks can say, hey, how's that insight coming? And there's some just amazing power that comes from the wisdom of crowds that we've hopefully successfully captured in our new version of insights here. So I want to show you all what that looks like as well very quickly. And hopefully kind of end on a great note, thinking about what generating insights can mean for you and your organization. So overall, we have here our insights platform, our insights dashboard, if you will. There have been some insights that have already been created in this test data that I'm using. And I actually want to point out perhaps an opportunity for what it looks like to create an insight as well. So maybe I'm going to use this exact example in reverse order. I'm going to think about what an insight for our open space kind of Parks and Recreation division might look like. Perhaps for this park cleaning program, I'm going to think about creating an insight, and that insight might be, parks need to be cleaned more regularly since the COVID outbreak, and maybe we can do this through a partnership because there's a city and a county and we're right next to each other and we both have parks and we're both doing it more often. And there's probably more efficiency to be had here. So my insight might be pursue partnership with adjacent communities to clean parks more efficiently. Timeline, how quickly do I think this could be done? I think it could be done within a year or less. So I'm going to say short term, and it might be a little bit more high complexity. We have to go through their local officials. We have to go through our local officials. We have to figure out who's cleaning which parks on which times of day and all of that kind of stuff. So complexity might be high, but I think overall there's a huge partnership opportunity here that I want to have captured. This is when our software is going to prompt folks, if they're interested, to leave a budget impact and approximation for what they think this might cost and what they think this might save the organization that we're working for. They can do that in words here, and they can indicate an expense, revenue, or savings opportunity and the dollars associated here, and whether or not it's one time or ongoing. We also fully recognize that sometimes you're just creating an insight, you're just documenting it. You may not know all of these quite yet. So it's okay to just leave this part blank and say, I'm gonna revisit that one. I need to talk to some more finance people about what that means. And that's totally okay. You're also prompted to leave some more information here. Why are you recommending this insight? What needs to happen? So on and so forth. These questions are totally customizable to your organization. And again, something that people might not know right now, so it's totally fine to skip and fill later. Where these questions really come into play is for our created insights. And when you have the opportunity as a whole organization to see all of the insights that are populated here over and over again, you might reference back some of that information for the budget impact or for the recommendation overall, especially when you're incorporating some of that social feedback that we've talked about. So you have the opportunity to upvote this insight and say, great idea, and you can vote on it, or I can vote on someone else's insight and I can leave a comment, say, I like this, but it seems hard, or something like that. And I could drill in and talk even more about what these insights might mean and things like that. And the last thing I want to quickly point out here, for those of you on the call, many of you, I believe, are in the position of super user or decision maker. This dashboard can become really fun when you've generated, we've seen, hundreds and hundreds of insights be generated. I think, I actually don't know who the record holder for number of insights might be. That might be a fun thing for Chris to think about and be put on the spot for when I turn it back over to him. But anyone on the call, of course, if you've gone through an insight workshop before or are considering it, you're going to get a plethora of these, and you might want to slice and dice them in many different ways. You might want to see, okay, show me all the high complexity insights. All right, so those are those. Show me all the insights that we think we can do in a year or less. Okay, those are those. And you can start really determining which ones you want to pursue based off of those different and fully customizable characteristics as well. So complexity and timeline or sample characteristics might be something that's more meaningful to your organization, and you can pursue those as well. That was a rapid fire overview of our new software, and really appreciate everyone for being patient here, and hopefully, like I said, not experiencing whiplash, but rather excitement for our software overall. And we'll quickly just point out again that all of this is the promise of the program is being able to leverage your data, generate insights, and take action on them. And overall, there's plenty of different ways to take action, but I want to leave some time for Chris to talk about the one that we are most excited about, which is budgeting in the 21st century with our ResourceX software. And as soon as Chris is done, there's going to be some time for Q&A. So again, just keep those questions coming and we'll make sure that we answer them before this is all done.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jackie. And just so that everybody remembers, I'm going to give you a teaser on the budgeting functionality. And then please do plan to join us if you can, October 28th. That link for the registration is in the chat. And at the same time, if we get into this in this teaser version and you are wanting to get into this a lot faster, just give us an email and we'll set up something specifically. But as Jackie just led us through, we can create data at the program level in a much easier and streamlined fashion, connecting it to priority-based budgeting. But the next big leap that we had to make was to get from creating data and using insights to take action on the data to actually budgeting with it, creating a budget development process. So if we had a missing link along the way, it has been the budgeting process overall. In general, our leap had to meet organizations where they are as it pertains to the budget process. And what I'm walking you through by way of just quick illustration, this comes from the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who was our greatest guinea pig and greatest success this year on the and creating a budget development process. But as we know, from line item based budgeting, a department will see their line items, maybe they get some trend analysis and they produce their line item budgets every year. And heretofore, priority-based budgeting hopefully has been informing those budget decisions, but it's never quite connected. And it's always left these open-ended questions when it comes to something like, this increase in professional services line item. We're always left wondering from a decision maker standpoint, what does this have to do with our results? What if we doubled it to 50,000, or what if we cut it all together? Is there any impact on the results that we're trying to achieve? And that, in a sense, is what priority-based budgeting has always intended to set you up to understand in a far different way. Where now, if we can replay the tape and take this line item change, we want to be able to characterize it in terms of the programs that it is impacting and whether or not those programs have anything to do with the results you're trying to achieve, so that from a decision maker's perspective, you could say, this is a line item request. Part of it is associated with, in priority-based budgeting vernacular, quartile 1 programs. Part of it is associated with quartile 3 programs, which have less to do with achieving results. And we're going to evaluate this request differently depending on the programs that it is associated with. So flash forward to the way that it's looking in the tools and what Jackie was just walking us through. We want to be able to see any programmatic request, any line item request associated with quartiles to set us up in a different way from a decision maker standpoint to approve or deny and move forward with a recommended budget that is aligned with results and certainly characterized around the programs that we offer. I mentioned that Pittsburgh was our guinea pig. This is just from September 30th. They just released their mayor's recommended budget using the budgeter functionality and mindset. So totally encourage you to visit what they have put together overall. They not only used their program inventory for program-centric budgeting, but also a climate impact lens so that they could see budget requests as they pertain to programs and their ranking, as well as budget requests evaluated specifically through a climate lens overall. I'm just going to give you a few quick screen captures of what we'll get far more into in 2 weeks. But we have full reporting capabilities to serve the budget development process itself as departments make their programmatic requests. We want to be able to summarize how that request is organized around programs and what the justification is for any of your business cases or decision packages that come through and frankly, for any change that the department is recommending for the budget overall. But a couple of key concepts as departments are going into the portal, accessing their program inventory data and beginning to produce budget recommendations for any given program. Here, animal control, for example, there may be several different budget requests associated with it. Some might be personnel requests, others might be strict inflationary increases in a particular line item overall. Just like you saw Jackie demonstrate with Insights, the program is the hub to which we are attaching all budget recommendations that are coming forward. As a department goes through the process of creating a budget request, their thinking has to be oriented towards the program that they are going to impact. So here, for example, if I did move forward and I'm asking for a new dispatcher for animal control, I have to think through, is this increase just due to inflation, or is it a real service level increase? Is there a program efficiency? That flagging is going to be super important, as we saw in Pittsburgh's case, to be able to differentiate what is the nature of the actual request. For many of us, sometimes programs go up in costs and actually has nothing to do with a service level change. It has everything to do with just basic inflation of a particular line item overall. As Jackie had mentioned, these are flexible characteristics in the tools. In Pittsburgh's case, not only did they want to look at the nature or the intention of the budget request, but how does it impact equity? How does it impact climate? And they used those particular flags for further evaluation down the line. And for those who have followed along or even participated, this is exactly how we did the Bloomberg program for the city budgeting for equity, was understanding budget requests and program insights from an equity perspective overall. As we go through, and if I was creating a request for this new dispatcher overall, what's really cool is we're bringing to bear all of the priority-based budgeting data that your organization has put together. So here I would see in animal control how all of my current staffing is supporting this program, so that when I'm asking for this new dispatcher, I can compare it to current staffing levels and express my budget request corresponding to how the new allocation is going to take place. Personnel can be allocated to multiple programs. As it comes together, we can see the new dispatcher, the new request, the vacancy savings that might go along with it, and then move on to a non-personnel request that might go along with it. As I said, well, I want to go into each of these specific examples even in greater detail when we are doing the full demonstration on the 28th. Suffice it to say that for any budget request that is produced by a department, we get a summary level perspective of the personnel changes, the non-personnel changes, and whether or not this is worthy of considering for advancing. It's here, in this case, it's attached to a quartile 1 program. This program is mandated. It has a certain degree of reliance, cost recovery. All of the scoring information is now brought right in front of you as a decision maker, so that we can move into the discussions of whether to approve or deny those particular requests that are coming forward. Just like in Insights, as Jackie walked us through, there is an opportunity to say upvote, downvote. We can filter on the type of fund that we're looking at, a department for those particular meetings that we're getting into, and then ultimately reproduce this back in terms of those recommendations that are moving forward. And probably most satisfying is the ability to export all of this back to the line item data so that we can move forward and create a 2022 recommended budget. The takeaway as programs are used in the budget process, it's mainly to bring context to the type of budget requests that are being created so that decision makers can understand what is the nature of this professional services request, like we led with. What programs does it belong to? Are those programs tied to results or are they not? is the request high priority or low priority? But at the end of the day, we still have to disentangle all of the line item information to work our way back to what did we just approve? And that is what the export looks like overall. So I know we have about 5 minutes left. That was a super quick crash course, but we will again get into some more detail if you join us in about 2 weeks. But did want to, Jackie, you might tackle Jim's question right off the bat. And I'm going to open up my chat as well, just to see how some of the other questions are coming in. But feel free to come off mute or add your question to the chat. But yeah, I'll turn it back to Jackie real quick.
Yep, thanks, Chris. So Jim, to directly answer your question, are these still available to import and export? There's not the same download upload that was available, kind of what we would call kind of front end or on the screen, but it is still definitely something that I thought appeals to you more. We can generate that those spreadsheets for you and say, hey, edit this column, send it back to us, and we'll upload it in the database, no problem. Again, to your point of we found it more beneficial to use Excel to go through these, but haven't used the new tool. We heard that feedback pretty often, which is why we kind of rebuilt it to try to make it much easier to not have to fiddle with Excel and make it like really quick. Click on this bubble, leave a comment, click on this bubble, hit save progress, and you're good to go. But do totally recognize that some people may just be more comfortable in Excel and can offer that should someone want the Excel experience instead of the survey bubble experience. And hopefully I stalled long enough for someone else to chat their question and get it all typed out if someone else had another one, or again, like Chris said, happy to hear someone else's voice.
Hey, Chris, Jacqueline, actually, this is Jim again. Just because I'm kind of excited about the new, and maybe October 28th is the session to attend. We like the idea of being able to go through that budget process and making those requests, because that really will help drive that process. I'm just thinking about some of the things we do, which I assume most entities do. We might do a step increase from a payroll perspective that we'd want to put in. Is that something that, because I saw, in the program where you say, well, it's cost of living or those types of increases. Do we have to do that for every single program, or is that something we can do across the board for any personnel and get all that data in there before departments make additional requests?
Your mindset is in the right place, Jim. So there are a couple of different key things. Number one, I flew through, but there is a difference between a program-centric request and also general line item requests, which could impact like, hey, I don't want to go into every program and increase my fuel budget, for example, by 3% across every program where fuel is allocated. So you can go back to the line item perspective and create a line item driven budget request that will then flow through to all of the programs to which that cost has been allocated. That's one component of it. A second is on the personnel side specifically, your mindset is exactly right. You want to be able to have, if you're doing a personnel projection separately, we worked with Pittsburgh and East Moline, Illinois, to make sure that we have the personnel recommendation for the 2022 budget all set up. And we basically create a playground for development of the budget. It is a work in progress component. I know we're basically at time, and two things, Jim. One, clearly we can wait till the 28th to get into it in more detail. But I think Liz had posted, if you want to set up a meeting with your team because you're starting to think through that right now, please, let's do something sooner than later so we can walk through all the details for how it would work for you guys. But your question reflects that you are understanding exactly how we would set up your budget development process.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. I know we are at the end of the hour, and we recorded this session. I don't want to take advantage of anybody's time because I know it's Zoom world and you're probably late for the next meeting already. But really appreciated the time here, and you'll get the recording afterwards. But just like we were expressing to Jim, please, if you do want to talk a little bit in more detail about how this works for current clients as you're trying to transition to the new tool platform, in regular basic PVB, insights, and the budget development process, please, you don't have to wait till the 28th, just get in touch with us. And then for those of you who are new, thank you for being here. And this was a crash course, not only in the concepts of priority-based budgeting, but our tools and how you build that programmatic data, your inventory, your costs, your scoring towards results, as well as budgeting at the program level overall. So if you are intrigued with how this could work, also, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we look forward to keeping the conversation going. So I'll bring this to a close and just say thank you, everybody. This is something that we could not be more excited about. So thanks for spending the afternoon with us, and we'll look forward to staying in touch.